there's something that's been bothering me. Well, to be fair, it's been bothering a lot of us, I would say. Allow me to make reference to notes. And allow me, in a sense, to say some of these are my views. I don't want to sort of like implicate as this is Mariam and Eric's views, they're mine. They don't necessarily reflect the views of the organization. I think it's important to say that. But whatever is happening, I think has been frustrating, but it's also been very dangerous. And I'd also want to use the example that is most recent. We're talking here about tribal rhetoric. Now, recently, and we'll try and see if we can run that bite a little bit later. We'll try and see if we can run that bite a little bit later. A young lady who spoke in Baltimore in the US and pushed back at the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Let's see if our team can find that and see if we can run it at some point. But what it is that's been frustrating and dangerous is this tribal rhetoric. And not only that, I think what's worse is centering a specific tribe over and above others. Again, I'll use the example of the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, going into that room and saying, Kikuyus are the engine of this economy. When you center one tribe over another and use that tribal rhetoric, the words I've used are not just frustrating, but very dangerous. And a little later on, because we'll have the conversation with Eric and Mariam, we'll talk a little bit about where it started, how former deputy presidents and presidents have also used this to whip up emotions when it suits them. In fact, oftentimes it's when they are heading towards the ballot, they hide behind, I would call it tribal cowardice, because it's not a unifying factor, and it only works for them when it's leading up to the ballot. There's been a few others. We've seen this from the likes of, for example, Opio Wandai, even John Badi. This is in the past, and this is all documented online. This is not something that's made up. You can go and make reference yourself. Their supporters boldly suggest that their regions should be first in line for development. So again, that isn't leadership. That's pandering, and that's pushing a very dangerous rhetoric. So I also want to remind people that culture and tribe are beautiful. It's part of our diversity. It's part of what makes us unique. I was just reflecting the other day and thinking, I'm fortunate to have gone to so many parts of this country, and at no point ever was it a matter of who comes from where and who does what. It was literally about celebrating the languages, celebrating the food, celebrating the culture, celebrating how different people think. That is what makes us a beautiful nation. That is what makes us a Kenyan nation. But again, oftentimes you will find a certain group being centered over and above others, as in many ways invalidating the importance of everybody else. There's a privilege issue to it, but there's also a persecution issue to it, and you leave people open to that. People who do not share the same view that Kikuyus are the end-all and be-all. That's shared by those in power who take advantage of it, and in the end, what are you doing? You're invalidating what other people think. It's incredible to see how young people are rising against that. And I would want to say over the decades, I feel people have pushed back, but not ever in this way, in the sense of saying, right now, what do people want? They want access to services. They want access to education. They want access to be able to just have a dignified life. It really doesn't matter who they are and where they come from. There's a collective push to say, as Kenyans, we want what we deserve. But as a leader, and the Constitution talks about nationalism, when you go out there and say, as a leader, but I'm also sidelining those in my region and priming them to continue to carry on leadership, what are you doing? You're dividing a country that's already been pushed to the edge. You are amplifying a message that is, first of all, very outdated. Let's come back to 2025. It's an outdated message, but it's very reckless. And people are now waking up to that. So, TED Talk. Ongeni toke. Because it's very frustrating. So this isn't just about Gachagua. It's about a political class that has long used tribe to manipulate, divide, and distract. A new generation is calling it out. We would be wise to listen for those who are trying to build tribal bunkers in a country that is craving unity for tribe's sake. Miss me with that.
Shika, Jano, Shika.
It's really frustrating.
I don't know, I forgot to carry flowers.
No. It's frustrating, and it's reckless. It's tone deaf. it's disrespectful, it's disregarding, and it's very unnecessary. Not in the times we're in, but Kikuyu's this, Kikuyu's that. Even as a Kikuyu, miss me with that. It's got, and sometimes I don't want to assume that my understanding of how I got to where I am has been my hard work. Some might argue, maybe your tribe opened doors for you. That was never part of my story and my journey. And I think the same can be said for many others. But there is a privilege to recognize and a persecution to be aware of. And then I also think about how first of all, it's caused wars. Tribal rhetoric. Anyway, Mariam and Eric.
Quite literally. No, you're right. It has caused wars around the world. Here, it's caused massive, massive destruction. It's caused loss of life. It's, like you said, it's weaponized. I just agree entirely with your miss me with that, because you've looked at it from the history of it. One, we can't deny our cultures, our tribes. They are who we are, and they're something to take pride in, and it's a beautiful thing. But when people take advantage of it, it's very problematic. With regard to Gachagua, it started with the shareholding comments, not even probably before that, but, then just coming into this, it's more or less the same thing. He's not the only one, but perhaps right now the loudest one. Right. And you've given examples of that. Then as we move forward, people are clearly trying to move into something else, into ideology-based politics, into something that's, tangible, that's value-based. And the tribal class is the political class is going back to what they know, what they can weaponize, what they can use. So I think we should expect a lot more of this. It's only that we must push back and push back and push back and be very conscious of the fact that they don't care. It's really not about tribe, because they fraternize and they hang and they are friends behind closed doors, and their children are friends. So they will weaponize you, but not at their own expense. And that's a thing to remember, I think, about the political class. William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua were allies at some point. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were allies at some point. Raila Odinga has been allies with everybody, literally, regardless of tribe. But then when it comes to now weaponizing their home bases, that's when they remember where they come from. That's when they remember their mother tongue. That's when they...
That's really well said.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Also, what you said about a privilege to be aware of, quite true.
Yep.
I think it's something that people don't also want to admit.
Who wants to give a privilege?
Yeah, who wants to give a
Who wants to be
privilege?
like, take my privilege? I can share it. Nobody wants to do that. But we have to, you have to be cognizant of it. Across tribal lines, across race lines, because those things are damaging and harmful. So you have to be aware of it.
The KRA chair right here said that an audit says that 55% of KRA workers come from two tribes. The two tribes.
Yes.
We have to be honest with ourselves and just move forward and be like, this is not something that is problematic in and of itself, but the way it's being used is now turning
to be problematic. And just before Eric comes to weigh in, it's important, and like I said, it's part of what we'll talk about a little bit, just like historically how we got here. But in a nutshell, it is taking advantage of a system that was already set up to lock out everyone else. So whether it's going as far back as how Jomo Kenyatta came into presidency, what he did during his presidency, then it did elevate the Kikuyus, right? So anything else that comes out of that, the privilege and the access, etc., taking advantage of it, accepting it, playing into it, is playing into a broken system. And again, the world over, when we talk about sexism, when we talk about tribalism, racism, everything speaks to the privilege of one over another. And then the power dynamics and the fact that those who are perpetuating it do not want to give it up. So when we say, allow there to be more women in the boardroom, and a section of men are saying, why, how? Why would I give up my power? If it's race science, which at some point we'll talk about, but where you literally said science says one race is better than another, and then fact and truth come out and show you actually it's a lie. And suddenly when there's somebody else outperforming in certain spaces, you say, no, we need to do something else. And then coming right back to Kenya and saying, we are the drivers of the economy. Yeah, because you adopted a broken system that made it easy for you to be the drivers of the economy. But how many incredibly talented people were locked out as a result of you playing into the privilege? And it's a lie. Anything to do with isms and saying this is because of that, it's a lie. And a lie that can be taken very dangerously when it turns into genocide, when it turns into ethnic wars, when it turns into, people trying to killing each other basically along racial lines. Loose lips sink ships.
That's
what you say? Okay.
And thanks for saying it, Jano. Yeah. No, it has to come. Unfortunately, we live in a world where it has to come from a Janet Mbugua.
Yeah.
If it's me saying it, that's a whole other problem.
Oh, by the way, even after this, they're going to come for me. Let me tell you, even building up to this, there was already division. And I was like, therein lies the problem.
What's the issue, though?
I think the issue is not recognizing. I'll try and paraphrase, but it's everything we've done, the burden we've carried and where we've come from. I was like, okay. Number one, again, I went back to, please trace that system that allowed that to happen. It's not invalidating the wins that so many people have done, whether it's post-independent Kenya, whether it's the fight for independence, it's not invalidating that. I think what's problematic is using that to center yourself through and through and through and say, because we are the chosen, this thing of chosen, like it's right now there's an ongoing global conflict because of a group saying we're chosen. Anyway, so that was the problem, is you're invalidating everything we've done and fought for. So it's not an invalidation, it's a recognition of, yes, appreciating and accepting that there are people who shed blood for us to be where we are.
Absolutely.
It does not validate the fact that now you're the trophy bearer for everything and everyone. And even post-independence, because of how the government was set up, because of how the founding president set structures up, kitchen cabinet, all of this has been documented, you're benefiting from a broken system. That's where I was coming from. So their issue was, we're the ones who've, it's essentially what Rigathi Gachagua said, we're the drivers of the economy, we're the ones who fought for. I said, okay, so is everybody else not important?
Is that what Gachagua said?
In his response to Valentine, because if you listen to the response, he said, number one, you are buying a narrative that is being used to disrupt what it is I'm trying to say. He said, remember, William Ruto made us despise Uhuru Kenyatta because of 1, 2, 3. So young girl, my daughter, don't buy into the fact that what I'm saying is not about centering the Kikuyus. It's about saying, it's about cautioning you not to listen to the naysayers. She also commented on a comment he made about saying, we are the drivers of the economy. That's where her pushback came in. It is what he said, in a sense.
Was he saying that okay, so
yeah,
that the region, Mount Kenya, the economic activities in the region of Mount Kenya and their contribution to the GDP is clearly higher than others. Right? Is Rigathi Gachagua saying that we are superior, or is he saying that we are contributors to the economy? Is he saying that we are many in numbers? Is he saying that, this region as a bloc, as a voting bloc, in how he and others have exercised, practiced politics, that as a bloc, we are many in numbers. As a bloc, if you look at our economic activities and the region, not just from wherever, if you look at the contribution in this region to the economic activities and so on and so forth, we are actually a significant contributor to this. If that's what he's saying, there's one issue that he's raising here, which is, number one, region, number of registered voters, population, and so on and so forth, combined. If you just say that, if you assume that they are actually homogeneous, fine, there are many. If you assume that they actually, now these counties, if you just look at the economic activity and all and the contribution to the economy, it's significant. If we say all those things, those are factual.
They are.
What is the issue? Is the issue the way he's saying it and the implication of what he's saying? Is the issue with the recipients of the message who are not from this region and what they hear him to be saying?
Right.
What is the issue? And maybe
I think
we need to bring out this whole conversation because even as we talk about tribe from all fronts, if you went to any part of this country, people will talk about themselves in their identity.
They will.
And the ethnic identity is not a negative thing.
No.
It is a positive thing. It's you start from who you are, your family, your identity. Ethnicity is a big part of our identity. We recognize it. So when we talk about ethnicity from that context, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
At what level does it start becoming a problem?
Problematic.
And why does it start becoming a problem?
She used did you use the word weaponization? I'm making that. I'm giving.
Yes.
Okay. But I wanted
weaponization,
to
but you used it as well, but yes, weaponization.
So here's the thing. It's the ... because you're right. Those are facts. Kiambu has, I think, the highest per capita income of all counties in Kenya. Second only to Nairobi, or even above Nairobi, if I remember correctly. Population-wise, again, can't argue with numbers. Those are facts. The ... is then, what are you using this information for? What narrative are you pushing? Remember, Rigathi Gachagua is the same person who pushes the shareholder, pushed the shareholder argument, right? He's trying to tell you that some people have more shares. Then this is his argument for having more shares. It's driving the economy, even though the rest of the country still exists. It's, again, population and things like that. So what are you using? Those are facts, and there's nothing wrong, again, with the facts. They are what they are, but what are you using them for? What kind of narrative are you pushing? And it's used everywhere. In other places, it'll be, everyone has something that they think makes them better than, right? Every tribe in Kenya will talk about this and that and this and that, but it's weaponizing it that is problematic. Because it can come from a point of pride and a point of like, cash crop nyandarua ni waru, beautiful. But then if it now becomes an argument for wanting more over others and not equitably, then I think that becomes problematic. Now you're weaponizing that. Everybody will have something of pride to them, and it's a beautiful thing. It's also the contextual history, because you can't just say Kiambu has the largest per capita income without interrogating the how and the why. It's, Mount Kenya is some of the most fertile places of this country. That's a fact. So a lot of cash crops, a lot of tea, a lot of coffee. That's fair. Also, the proximity to Nairobi, to the seat of power, plays a large role and has been that way since the colonial times. The colonial powers were here to extract. So they developed what they needed to make things work for them. They developed the parts that they needed to extract. They left the rest of the country pretty much. That's why Northeastern is the least developed. There was nothing to take from there. So then you need to get the why, the how we got here, and then what are you using this rhetoric for?
Let's take a break, but you'll come back and react to that, because it is that the weaponization of that rhetoric.
I'm just saying, if we blow up this conversation, let's blow it up. I totally agree that a leader as Rigathi Gachagua should not be always continuously centering on the message of Mlima, of community, of region. I completely agree. But now let's look at it from also all angles. Why were people so angry when they were saying, yes, Gachagua needs to go home because of this shareholder conversation? What was the understanding of the shareholder conversation? I mean, right? If it's the people who contributed most to the votes for William Ruto, if they came from two communities, is that a fact or is it not a fact?
Also, it's a problematic fact, but let's take a break. It is a problematic fact. Let's take a break. We're coming back to continue with the conversation. Some of you are contributing online. Yeah, it's not an easy conversation, but it has to be said. It's coming up to 8:30. We'll be right back. Mariam. Sawa, nitadu. Lazima, even last week ulisema utadu.
Sinilifanya. Amkuiona?
I love. Pardon? Pardon moi.
Kwani mlikuwa wapi? I did the video.
I sent it. It's there. You people are just...
Yes.
Yes. Amos Kimutai, Janet saying tribal politics is outdated is only on paper. In reality, Kenyan politics is tribal. That's the thing. It's not negating the fact that it still holds true. But I think what's outdated is that now there's going to be a general warm embrace from all corners. It still will, it'll always, in many ways it remains the stronghold that it had, where it was a majority demographic that embraced it. I think we're now clearly seeing, even if it's along, whether it's age, etc., are just saying, no, we don't want that. But absolutely, it is still part of our reality. I think we're just interrogating why it's unnecessary, why it's dangerous, and why it's reckless. But thank you for speaking to that. A few other comments. Who is here? Peter Otieno saying, clap, 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 clap. God be with Team Fixers for sharing this opinion, and a few others. But I thought it was important to bring that out because, yes, it's true. Some people do not buy that it's outdated. I think what's outdated is the perception of what it can bring. And also there's an unpredictability in it. I think we've talked about it a lot. Eric has said it a lot. He's like, we're here. What about the majority of people on the ground? They may have very different views. But again, seeing how much people, even though we are all Kikuyu's hashtag, it's an example of how people are just saying, you know, we have bigger fish to fry. We have bigger problems. You now doing divide and conquer, it's still not going to have any impact on me. I'll bring in Eric and Mariam. I know you want to weigh in. There's a little bit of a table here that has leader, centered tribe, tactic used. It's very short. Jomo Kenyatta, leader, centered tribe, Kikuyu. The tactic that was used to center Kikuyus and isolate others, land allocation and appointments. Daniel Moi, leader, centered tribe, Kalenjin, tactic used, district development bias, loyalty politics. I think we saw that play out. Leader, Mwai Kibaki, centered tribe, Kikuyu elites. Tactic used, kitchen cabinet politics, patronage. Leader, Raila Odinga. This is not presidency. There's two other presidents. Two other presidents I'll come to. Centered tribe, Luo and Luya bloc. Tactic used, regional marginalization narrative. Uhuru Kenyatta, centered tribe Kikuyu. Tactic used, ethnic victimhood in ICC, period. Finally, the current president, Kalenjin, support us now, we supported you before. So it's not new. I mean, I might be stating the obvious. The patterns are there. And again, it's especially when it comes at the leadership level. I think this is what's dangerous and reckless about it, is that it's at the leadership level where you're the leader of a nation. So you center a specific tribe, isolate everybody or exclude, and expect people to feel seen, heard, and validated. Right. Locking out people who have quality, skills, passion, but because they do not belong to a certain tribe, you pass them over. So just thought I'd bring in that context. I think it's so important. There's a lot more to draw from this, but I think at another day, there's so much historical context. Some people might see this and say, how can you say that? Don't you understand ABCD? That also needs to be had. But I think what I'm pushing back on today is the centering of Kikuyu people as the end-all, be-all weaponization at a time when we truly need to stand together.
No, nothing to be said, really. I think and Eric will come back and we'll also hear actually from the US, Valentine and Rigathi Gachagua. Yeah, let's hear from that actually as I gather my thoughts.
Mheshimiwa, we are here to tell you the truth. And if we don't tell you the truth as Gen Zs, we are doomed to fail and Kasongo will be back in power. And that is the truth. We have many questions, but because of time, I won't address the questions. I'll just stick to the point. You need, Mheshimiwa, to start positioning yourself as a national leader, not as a tribal leader. And I know many people won't like what I'm saying, but it's the truth. The first mistake that has been done in this event is speaking Kikuyu. And me, I'm from Madeira, Karandi. So not everyone knows Kikuyu, but I know a little bit. And unless that is addressed, then all this will be for nothing. Because the moment we position ourselves as Kikuyu, another tribe also positions themselves as a certain tribe. And before we know it, we are back to the same problem.
Okay. Why do we play our politics this way?
In what sense?
Because this is how we play our politics. Okay? In all those things that we talk about, how we organize politically, there's a few people who will go into an election and not think tribal. Okay? There's very many people who will go into an election and think tribal. And you're thinking tribal because you're thinking that this person is our leader, is our region, from our region, is our kingpin. And we are sending them there to go and, make a coalition with this and the other so that we can benefit. Okay? Now, you could bring in and say, we're talking about regional balance and all those, and so on and so forth. We're talking about, representation of a region, representation of a people. But at the core of it, it's the tribe. At the core of it, right now, talk to the Mkisis and they'll tell you we have a candidate. Right? If you went to lower eastern Kenya, you will be told that we have a leader. Right? If you went into North Rift, now they have a leader. There's been a push by some of the leadership of the Maa community to emerge as the leader of the Maa community. I represent and I champion the Maa people. Nothing wrong and negative about that. But then, when the people are going to vote, why do we think that way? Why do I want to elect, why do I want to say that, okay, so and so, unajua ndio kiongozi wetu, sasa ameenda, ameungana na wale wengine, now we are going to get into office, but now our guy was only given which ministry, surely, sasa si tumeonewa, na wale wamechukua ile nini yote kubwa. Why do we think that way? What is it? Because you could say that, yes, there are some parts of this country that, would feel that they are entitled, and there are other parts of this country that also feel that they are marginalized. And whenever they feel that they are marginalized, they have somebody in reference. There's another community that they're feeling, we are marginalized because they are privileged. Why do we feel that way? Is it possible for us to stop thinking and feeling that way? Is it? Because if it isn't, then let the game continue.
No.
I think you fix the problem as opposed to fixing the feeling. You can't really fix the feeling if you can't fix the problem.
What's the problem?
The problem is there are parts of this country that are heavily marginalized, and that needs to be fixed. So the thing is, again, it's how things are framed and how people take advantage of what is factual to now frame things for their political benefit, right? So then it'll come, the fact is, when you're marginalizing someone, that comes at the expense of someone else.
Yep.
That's a fact, right? But is it a whole community that is taking from you? No. It's a system that's problematic and is systematically taking from A to give to B. That's the problem. And that's a higher problem, right? It's not a community problem, it's not a person-to-person problem. So we need to be honest about that. But they will weaponize it, political class will weaponize it when it's time to get votes and say, us we're marginalized, or us we need more, or us we, no. And they will use that to their advantage. So it's recognizing how what is factual is then used. Same thing you were saying about Rigiji's utterances. Again, drivers of the economy, that's one way to put it. When you contextualize and you're like, okay, why does this region make more on average than other regions? It's a fact, but why?
But the why.
And then what am I pushing with this information?
Exactly. And Rawlings Abida speaks to some of what you said earlier. Kikuyus became the drivers of Kenya's economy through a historically contingent mix of geography, colonial disruption, land ownership, early urbanization, cooperative financial structures, and politics. He goes on to say their success is not inherent, but structured. And it came at the cost of conflicts, displacement, and inequalities within other groups. Then finally, he says, today this imbalance fuels tension, hence holds this disproportionate economic and political power, continues to provoke grievances over land, marginalization, and favoritism across the country.
Right.
He's broken it down.
Perfectly.
And in a sense answered maybe what Eric was saying. It's, it cannot be fixed if it's perpetuated. If you keep centering yourself as we are the ones who deserve all these positions in power. We are the ones who can. Marginalized people, by the way, have every reason to feel marginalized because they quite literally are. And again, it's a structured issue. It means that you lock me out of participation. To Eric's point, again, it's in a way also the marginalized perpetuate the ethnic. But the resentment in many ways comes from the fact that when you isolate, when you lock me out, when I'm marginalized, and I see you then prop other people as more important than me, their contributions as more important than mine. First, you're not seeing me. You're not validating my existence as a Kenyan, number one. Number two, you know that will drive the same narrative that we are the ones who belong in power. We are the ones who get to keep the power. And you'll come and say, I'm not seeing things moving in my life, in my region. And I think it's as a result of what he keeps saying.
Right.
I don't have access to hospitals as much as other people in other regions do. I don't have access to education. I may not even have access to, necessary healthcare. And then I start drawing those parallels and saying, he's speaking there. When I look at what his constituencies or what the counties is referring to, when I see how perhaps they're able to produce more, have better access, I'll draw the two and I'll say it's because of them.
Right. It's divide and conquer. Oldest strategy in the book. Again, let's figure out where we came from. The colonial powers came here to extract, to take. So they developed where they could take from. And that already led to marginalization, right? The less you had to offer, the less they cared about you. That's just a fact of life. So you'll find that Nairobi and surrounding regions enjoyed quite a lot of development as compared to other parts of the country. But now, when we got independence, then you have to be honest that the political class then did weaponize that, as opposed to trying to figure out how do we get this country to be at a place where across the board, there's education, there's roads, there's service delivery, there's healthcare, there's, it was just kind of weaponized so that you can come and then say, those people are taking from you, or you deserve more, you deserve better. So that it's divide and conquer, oldest strategy in the book, as old as time has existed.
It is as old as time. And
so then we have to be cognizant and remove ourselves from it. So that's why we can't allow ourselves to, even when you are benefiting from the privilege, you can't allow yourself to fall for it and be like, yes, I deserve more. And even when you are marginalized, you can't allow yourself to also be like, yes, those people need to suffer for me to do better. Like, that's good, you have to completely dissociate and be like, we need to be equitable with everything that we're doing. We need to be fair to one another. And that's the bottom line.
Eric?
There are several conversations here that are parallel in my head. It's important for them to actually happen at the same time. But I think it's also important for us to know at what point we are getting into one and getting out of another. All right? One, there is the issue of historical marginalization in this country. And that is a fact, that it's been there for long. It's been there through the colonial years. There's what was happening. What was it that was happening in terms of development? Where were the settlers mostly in? And where was the economic activity happening around that time? What happens after independence? And what has happened since independence? For example, in 1965, the minister then in charge of economic planning was one called Tomboya. Now, Tomboya in 1965 came up with, from his Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, they developed something called Sessional Paper Number 10 of 1965. It's been mentioned many times. Somebody who was working in that ministry then as an undersecretary in the Ministry of Economic Planning was Mwai Kibaki, young economist, just come from Makerere, has worked in Kanu, has joined government. They authored this paper. It was called African Socialism and its Application to Planning in Kenya. And basically it was laying a blueprint of how do we accelerate growth in this nascent economy and a new country. It's basically, the principle here was, let's invest in the areas that are highly productive, get in money, and then we shall redistribute to other areas. The first part, let's invest in areas that are highly productive. What areas are highly economically productive then? Those are the ones that are already established from the colonial system. And so it ended up now with a lot of development happening in certain areas and marginalization of certain areas. Parts of this country, northeastern, up north in Turkana, west, parts of Nyanza, coast, ended up not getting as much in economic investment as other parts of the country. Centrally, Nairobi and areas around this, along the railway, okay? So it ended up with this marginalization. That happened, historical. We have a constitution that talks about now equalization and saying, let's equalize, let's bring in, first of all, let's devolve resources and decision making, and then let's create a fund called the Equalization Fund that goes in to grow up the economy. So marginalization and addressing marginalization, one conversation. There's a conversation of this country being a mix of various tribes. Even our constitution acknowledges this. In the preamble of our constitution, we acknowledge that we are multi-ethnic. Preamble, proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation. So we acknowledge that we are many communities that come together, okay?
Yeah.
We acknowledge that this is who we are. That is the other thing. At what point does then this start becoming a negative issue? It is when politics takes center stage, in my opinion. And the politics taking center stage, again, is historical over the years. And you may say it may not actually be unique to Kenya. It may not even be unique to politics. Politics is about representation.
Yeah.
Representing people or representing interests. People come together. In some countries, it's trade unions that drive politics.
True.
Interests. In some countries, it's, working
Values,
class and
ideologies.
values and all, and ideologies that drive. In other parts, it's just the people, where we come from, the region, and how we are organized.
Yeah.
Others, it's clans. In some parts of this country, it's clan. In a country like Somalia, it's clans, right? So it's the nature of the politics. When we start overemphasizing that and discounting everything else, it's where the issues start coming in.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to that point in our country where we have this open conversation. We tried coming up with NCIC and saying, don't spark tribal animosity. We saw what happened in this country in the tribal clashes, whether it's 1992 in Molo, in 1997 in Enosopukia, and in Kwale in 2007. We have seen it.
Yeah. We
have seen what it can do, and we have tried and put it as an armistice that will only last for a few years. Then it erupts again.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have this conversation. We need to have this conversation. What is it that works for us as tribes and organizing politically as tribes, and what does not work for us as tribes and organizing politically as tribes?
Okay.
Because then that's where we'll start drawing the line. And saying that if we know, for example, that Wiper's stronghold is Ukambani, that ODM's stronghold is Nyanza and Western Kenya and some parts of coast, that Jubilee's stronghold was Mount Kenya, and now DCP's stronghold is Mount Kenya, and so on and so forth. What's that we're talking about? Tribal. Can we then discuss it now? Throw it out there.
Openly.
Yes.
And honestly. Yeah. I think what you've posed is very critical. Let's draw the line. Where does it stop working, right? From a unit of representation and culture to then something else. If we're able to draw that line, I think we'd be a lot further. But I think the line is, for me, it's quite clear.
The rhetoric.
It's when the rhetoric is pushed against other people.
Yep.
That's the red line for me.
That is the line.
Yeah.
I don't see any other. I feel like it's already out there. I feel like it's to everything you've said, but I think the line, it becomes red and dangerous when your utterances immediately draw a division, because everything else could be working. There could be that unity and sense of purpose and ideology. The moment it becomes a preferred tribe over another, the minute you say, remember what happened to us, the minute you say, if you don't vote for us, then our people will suffer, it literally takes a sentence or two for that line to be drawn.
Great example.
Yeah.
Three of us here I could be like, I could just be feeling myself and she was like, Mariam, you're doing a great job, girl. Good job. Or I could come and say, I'm the one carrying this show. Those are two very different things. I could just be giving myself flowers and be just like, girl, you show up every day, you work hard. Or you can come and be like, yeah, I am the it. That's the red line. It's when it's antagonizing, yes.
Yeah. And
weaponizing and all
that's
that.
as a national leader, your job is to bring people together. When the president recently was in the heat of pushback around Sabasaba, and I think we did a Miss That editorial and said, how come it's only certain administrations? That's already careless. First of all, it's a lie. We established that. There was everybody must go from the very beginning. It was there.
It was.
But it's the other message. It's the subliminal message that he's sending that's dangerous. Because what you're doing now is stoking people in certain communities to be riled up to say, Enyewe, why is it? And it's always closer to elections. So I think that's the line. Is he saying that simply in passing to just say it? I'm like, you've not just said something in passing, you've riled people up when it was not necessary to do so.
True.
And it's not based entirely on truth. How is it already break time? It's 2 minutes to 9.
It is.
We'll continue.
We'll
to
try
be
and get
continued.
to
Let it continue even online. Charles Nungo says, when I go to a shop to buy bread, I don't pay attention to the shopkeeper's tribe. The issue of tribe is purely political. The political class thrives on disorienting us on tribal lines. Yes, Charles? On the day of voting, do you think tribe?
Remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so in the next hour, we talk about savings. We don't have a saving culture, a good saving culture in this country. Let's just face it, okay? What do we need to do to address that? Our next guest will help us to unpack that.